amid the dark shade of that lonely ash grove. 'Twas there while the blackbird was cheerfully singing, I first met my dear one, the joy of my heart. Around us for gladness the bluebells were springing, the ash grove that sheltered my heart.
children, come away with me. Sail away, sail away. No, you'll go back to Tennessee. Sail away, sail away. Don't you not come, Daddy-o. Don't you not come, Daddy-o. Don't you not come, Daddy-o. Children, don't you weep and cry. Sail away, ladies, sail away. Oh, you'll be an angel by and by. Sail away, don't you got home, Daddy-o. Don't you got home, Daddy-o. Don't you got home, Daddy-o. Sail away, sail away.
On behalf of the family, I would like to thank you for gathering here on this day and in this space as we come together to worship God and to offer our deepest thanksgiving for the life of Ethan Hill. That we gather today with the family and around the family as we seek the comfort of God and as we express our gratitude for shared memories of Ethan's life. That we seek the comfort of God through shared sorrow. For none of us is meant to do this life alone or to bear its burdens by ourselves. That we seek comfort for our sadness as we give thanks for the expressions of kindness that are all around us and that can restore our souls. Hear now these words from the psalmist which invite us to worship. As a deer longs for flowing streams, so my soul longs for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. Will you join your hearts with mine in prayer? Gracious and loving God, we come to find refuge in you and to give thanks for all of the goodness of Ethan's life. We are thankful for the shared gifts of memories and stories, laughter and inside jokes, special bonds, and the unmatched love of family and friends, which we continue to hold on to in the wake of such a loss as this. Those memories bring us to tears, and they can make us smile as well. When we are overwhelmed by emotion, may you whisper your love to us again and provide us strength. May it foster healing and wholeness, for the world looks different because of our grief. We invite the kindness of others to surround us, and may it help us see your steadfast love. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
As we sing together, we breathe together, and the connections between us grow stronger. We're grateful for the gift that the family has given us who gather here with them of the hymns that they have selected. The first one, a paraphrase of the first 3 verses of 1 Corinthians 13. I invite you to stand as able, hymn number 440.
Chuck has written some lamentations for Ethan, and I'll be sharing 2 of them with you today. A lamentation, August 30th. In his poem, The Meeting, Wendell Berry talks about a dreamed encounter with a long-dead friend. He has, I know, gone long and far, and yet he is the same, for the dead are changeless. They grow no older. It is I who have changed, grown strange to what I was. We saw our boy in his wooden coffin. To see him was a difficult decision, especially considering the length of time and the potential of trauma from the autopsy. But it was a good decision. The funeral home had given him the right touch of color. Trite to say, he did look like he was sleeping. Our sweet, beautiful, loved and loving boy. His beard was soft, softer than I remember. Haley had insisted that he keep his mustache trimmed to provide easier access to his lips, which she seems to have found quite kissable. As I have done so many times, I kissed his forehead. Although he was changeless, his skin held the shocking cold of death. We sobbed, the deep sobs of loss and lament. We held one another and wept, but we also smiled. You can't think about Ethan Hill and not smile. Donna raised the point that Ethan would be extremely put out. He would be annoyed that the three of us were there together and he was not part of it. He would be annoyed at all the fuss being made over him. We laughed. That boy. Haley brought music from musicians they had seen together, songs like Boy and Bear's Southern Sun and Marlon Williams' My Boy. Remembering the trip that Ethan and I had made to Patagonia a decade ago, I added Gotan Project's poignant Vuelvo al Sur. I am returning to the South, the way love always returns. I am returning to you with my own wish, with my own fear. I carry the South like a destiny of the heart. I am the South. To honor Ethan's nutcracker-obsessed years, we played the haunting Arabian dance. Oh, to rock my little boy to sleep in the darkness, or dance with him across the kitchen floor just one more time. Ethan still wore a faded Standard Deluxe wristband, and we placed items to be cremated with him. Pea blossoms from a plant that he had given Haley, sunflowers, seed packets, a brave guardian nutcracker. We each wrote a letter. It was a good rite, one in a series of goodbyes. We will take him back to Auburn. Maybe he can be buried with Grandmama and Granddaddy. It's a lovely idea that the three of them would be together. We will often cry, but we will smile. And, sadly, I already grow strange to what I was, and to my identity as the father I can no longer be. A lamentation from September 5th. Our boy is with us. We brought his ashes from the funeral home to our apartment on Friday. It was a solemn task, but our grief has evolved, its edges softened. We cried, but if there is a scale of sorrows, the magnitude of this step was not as great as we had imagined. A door closed, a box checked on the list of things that must be done. A nice fellow from the funeral home drove us back to our apartment, the only Aussie we have encountered who has worn a tie. On the drive, we talked about our kids. His daughter, about Ethan's age, has been in a 3-year battle with brain cancer. He retired from full-time work to care for her. As Ethan said, we rarely know the troubles carried by those we meet. We mourn deeply, but our lives are not defined solely by our grief. It's what Ethan would have wanted. Thursday night, we had a fine time catching up with Ethan's friend Brett, better known as Mango. We had a pint and a plate of crisps with tomato sauce, better known as fries and ketchup. Mango talked about how robust Ethan was when last they met, and how he had been looking forward to meeting Ethan's friend, Haley. We reminisced about Mango visiting Auburn and attending a football game. On Friday, we had a lovely lunch, vegetarian lasagna left by Haley, and salad greens from the community garden where Ethan volunteered. Missing our Gaja coffee maker, a gift from Ethan, we made coffee with a little AeroPress that he had taken to college only a dozen years ago. People have been reporting intriguing coincidences, the practical jokes played by reality. Our friend who went to the coroner to identify Ethan's body said that as she walked back toward the tram, a gull fell in step beside her. She looked at the gull, and the gull looked at her, cocking its left eye in Ethan's patented look of bemusement. "That's Ethan," she thought. One of Ethan's workmates, just learning of Ethan's death, was cut off in traffic by a car with an Ethan H. vanity plate. "You must contact his family," his wife told him. And it's spring here, so magical Australian flowers are blooming. Cockatoos are raucously declaring love, and paired green parrots race their hell-for-leather flights toward the Maribyrnong River and the sunset. As I have done at night for decades, I break first sleep at 2:38. Australian magpies, Ethan's favorite birds, are nesting in the quandong tree outside my window. In the night, I hear the Maggie's soft downfluting in a dark minor key, and I am safe to slip back into the dreaming.
Good afternoon. I'm not Chuck. These are Chuck's words. I'm not Chuck. I'm not going to sound like Chuck. I'm not Southern by birth. I don't have his same beautiful accent. I haven't had a drink yet today, so my borrowed accent hasn't come out yet. And I'm not a Hill or a Solly by birth. I'm a nephew-in-law. And my task is to read Chuck's beautiful words about his beautiful son without falling apart. And I am not going to have any luck at that. As an in-law, I don't have really a one-on-one relationship with anyone here. I have a relationship with a whole family. And I'm kind of outnumbered, I guess. But when Emily and I, Chuck and Donna's niece, were courting, I wasn't just dating Emily at the holiday times. I was dating this whole first row, especially including curly-headed little Ethan, who might have been about 5 or 6. And I fell in love with that family, and they accepted me. And so there's a really pretty straight line that brings me here. And when Emily and I were engaged, we got engaged in Italy, and of course, Chuck and Donna and Ethan happened to be in Italy at the same time. So they were the first people that we got to hang out with as newly affianced. And those are where our fondest memories and our most recent deep memories with Ethan were formed. And he was probably about 10 and a really sweet little boy. And without this family's love as a guide and without Emily, I wouldn't have our sweet little boy. We wouldn't have our sweet little boy. That's a really straight line that binds this family with our family. We're very grateful to have it. And I imagine, and that makes me not so outnumbered. And I imagine that makes you all not so outnumbered or alone, that there is some straight line that brings you here to be with Ethan and with Chuck and Donna. So, these are Chuck's words, and I am not going to make it through them. I'm hoping somewhere there's a dad joke or two, or maybe a rousing chorus of waltzing Matilda to lighten things up. But these are Chuck's very beautiful words about his beautiful boy. Funerals are not for the dead. They are for those of us who are yet living, for those of us who mourn. You know, of course, that during our all too brief remnant of time on earth, Ethan's mother and father will grieve. Sorrow will always be our shadow. But we will not build a monument to our grief. If there's to be a memorial, let it be a memorial to a wonderful young man, the beautiful soul that his neighbor Verica recognized. Let it be a memorial to an exuberant and enthusiastic spirit, the one that, as his friends like to say, lit up a room when Ethan Hill entered it. And if we were furry, four-footed canines like Frankie or Honey or Minnie, we could offer no resistance to his charms. Dogs are the best judges of character, so if we were dogs, we might be thrown into paroxysms of shuddering, tail-wagging joy just to be in his presence. Parents brag. So if you asked his mom and dad, we would declare that Ethan was singular, unique, unparalleled, unprecedented, and exceptional. He was coolly avant-garde while being warmly old school. Okay, to be a bit more down-to-earth, let's just say that Ethan was Ethan. And as an elderly neighbor in the throes of dementia told us repeatedly, he's a nice boy, a nice boy. That nice boy was also humble. Yes, he would be deeply embarrassed that we were all gathered here making a fuss over him. What's all this drama, then, he would have growled in his properly Australian accent. Drama. To be Ethan was to be an adventurer. How many of us spent 3 hours in Cali, Colombia, in a police station, negotiating to get back a stolen cell phone? Hunted deer in the mountains of New Zealand with our Maori brothers? Have you dived the reefs of the Coral Sea and trekked across the glaciers of Patagonia? Ethan did. That love of adventure carried Ethan everywhere, from Tierra del Fuego to Mombasa to Marrakesh to the sacred valley of Peru? Why play golf or learn to tango when you can dive on shipwrecks, scale rock faces, or ski black diamond slopes? But it was more than adventure. True travelers are searchers, searching for connection and experiences, and he often found them. We recall the time after his freshman year at Hendrix when he was a teenager traveling solo around New Zealand. A fellow traveler at a hostel in Greymouth was a young Chinese student. Chen Mu, now a family friend, was feeling lonely and isolated until a kid from Alabama offered friendship and cheerful optimism and just plain fun. Chen still celebrates the difference that Ethan made in his life, Ethan being Ethan. But to be Ethan always meant to be kind and gentle and empathetic. Once upon a time, Ethan was a freckle-faced fifth grader at Dean Road Elementary. A classmate returned to school after an extended absence, hobbled by brain trauma, a stroke, or cancer. Ethan took on the project of helping the young man get his lunch and cleaned up after him every day. What kind of 10-year-old takes on that kind of care, that responsibility? Ethan took new kids under his wing, undoubtedly influenced by his grandmother Hill. He was blind to color and culture. At our house, junior high sleepovers would find couches and sleeping bags full of Korean or Kuwaiti kids, black and white kids, Indian kids, refugee kids, and even a Yankee or two. The guys were all the same in Ethan's book. More recently, Ethan's sweet girlfriend, Haley, reports that he had curative powers. A cough or sneeze would lead to an immediate care package of soup, Panadol, and cherry ripes. We have been fortunate that all four of the lovely women who had been in Ethan's life have reached out to us. Some of you have met dear Mia, his partner for half of his adult life. Although their relationship had ended, we know what kind of supportive partners Ethan and Mia were to one another during the soul-killing isolation and unease of COVID, and through the challenges of multiple international moves. We loved and continue to love Mia. As young people tend to these days, they met in a hostel in Barcelona, and before we knew it, we were the Alabama extension of a marvelous Scottish, Polish, Australian family. Funny, smart, and loving people, just like Mia and just like Ethan. I love the word halcyon, the kingfisher, whose flight is made from joy. Halcyon days are the sweet life, an idealized and nostalgic time without care. For Ethan, the halcyon days were going off to college, to trade small-town Alabama for Hendrix College and small-town Arkansas. It was there that he met Avery, his first love. First love can be complicated, beautiful, and dynamic, especially when the lovers are complicated, beautiful, and dynamic. Avery wrote to us of their college days. Ethan was and will always be family to me. His love for you was evident in the stories he shared. The way he spoke about you and his grandparents was anything but typical for a boy his age, but was familiar to me. Love of family was something we shared. We moved through the world with a mixture of joy and confidence, but also humble consideration for others, all creatures great and small. He said yes to adventure and always wanted to see more, do more, learn more, understand more. He was interested, curious, and eager. He was the best parts of life, and watching his life unfold from afar brought me so much joy. He did everything he said he would when we were 18, and then some. The fact of his absence is breathtaking, but so is the knowledge that we once found each other. Maybe we will find each other again one day. Every message that we have received from Ethan's friends, from across his brief life, lauds that love for his parents and family. Relationships key to his identity. Our shared closeness, our deep friendship and kinship defined who he was and who we are, or who we were. Wasn't it just a few months ago that you heard a eulogy for Ethan's grandmother, my mother? Didn't I talk about the two of them playing puppies under the dining table? Always playing puppies, his favorite game in the whole world. Of course, Ethan inherited his green thumb inherited his green thumb and his love of gardening from his grandfather. Did I mention Ethan trailing his granddaddy to pick tomatoes? Or the blue-chinned 4-year-old who, through his own initiative, picked every blueberry in the garden? In a notebook we found after his death, Ethan wrote that he was always held up by 8 loving arms, his parents and his Auburn grandparents. I would also add his Solly grandparents, who lived farther away. There was the ritual of sardines and root beer with his Papa Solly, and there is video evidence of a giggling, wiggling 2-year-old and his Grammy getting into shenanigans, and video of the two of them having a serious adult talk about life and relationships. 4 more arms held him up. This is small but indicative. Not long ago, Ethan passed along his travel laptop to me. What was the password? I love my dad. And the wallpaper that I subsequently put on the computer screen, Ethan gazing toward the splendid spires of Argentina's Monte Fitzroy. Yep, that was our boy, and his ma and his pa, who loved him so very deeply. In the more entertaining corners of quantum physics is the concept of a multiverse, a set of infinite universes and infinite planets, infinite space, time, matter, and energy. Everything that could ever happen or exist happens and exists. Every possible option for being plays out in continuously unfolding alternatives. After Ethan died, our introductory text conversation with his new love, Haley, veered into quantum physics and fantasies about the multiverse, a subject on which all four of us had philosophized. Donna and I were not going to Australia to bring our boy home. In our comforting surrogate universe, we were going there for a merry holiday, with family and friends and feasting. And there would be doggos, lots of fat puppy bellies and soft puppy ears. It's not so hard to imagine. In her final years of dementia, my mother, Ethan's grandmother, moved between dream and reality. In her world, my father had just visited her, or Mom was going across the Sunflower River to have Sunday dinner with her folks. The many people she had loved and lost were still the living subjects of intense hopes and concerns. And during his final hours in hospice, my dad and I were going out to the woods to cut fishing poles and then heading down to the creek. Dad knew a spot where we could catch some mighty fine catfish, and we'll get there yet, Dad. We will get there yet. Although it might not have the spiritual allure of pearly gates and the streets of gold, we can still yearn for an alternative gathering for today's lovely service. We are not there to mourn or to honor a loss. We are here for a celebratory rite of thanksgiving. Dare I suggest a marriage or even a christening? It will be a shame to lose ancestral names like Saffronia and Paola Aurelia, so maybe Donna and I will have to get a black lab or 2. But when you and I go out today, we will face alternatives at every step of our journeys, alternatives that will forever determine our reality and the reality of others. We have choices. We can choose to act or just think about action. We can choose the interstate highway or the scenic back road. Kind words of encouragement or sharp rebukes? Will we curl up with a novel or check in with an old friend or make a new friend? This world needs people who take action, and it needs interactions that come down on the side of good, as we desperately need each other to bring light and joy and hope individually and to the larger world. Donna and I say this as beneficiaries of incredible benevolence. We are deeply grateful for the bounty of your love and support, and we have been stunned at how friends and family and strangers have become the angels that we needed at every juncture. Without them, without you stepping up, a brutal time would have become more than we could bear. When we traveled to Australia 2 months ago, strangers in a strange land, we were old and tired and shattered. Our hope, our joy, our light had faded and failed. We looked into an abyss of desolate, heartbroken darkness, but an amazing thing happened. The light of compassion surrounded us. The moment we stumbled from the terminal, that beautiful young woman named Haley gathered us up and hugged us, and while in her own sorrow, led us by the hand. when we began the complex and arduous task of organizing and closing Ethan's household, an amazing neighbor, V, hugged us and fed us and gave us wine, and marshaled the rich human resources of Clarence Street. When we finally had the nerve to face the complexities of Ethan's bills, retirement funds, bank accounts, and car titles, a compassionate attorney named Rosie cried with us and laughed with us and brought everything under control. We have praised the many angels whom we have met, several people who have observed. Well, that's what Ethan would have done. Now, since Donna won't let me conclude with a dad joke or a rousing chorus of Waltzing Matilda, let me conclude with a charge for all of us to be angels. Be the angel. Show up. We have learned how important it is to turn our thoughts and prayers into soups and flowers. Words without deeds, don't they say? When your pathway is darkest, Donna is going to plant forget-me-nots by your door. And I hope that my gumbo provides the right flavor of comfort. We will not wait for permission or instructions to do good. We will just perform our small, very human miracles. I don't remember the biblical Christ saying, would you mind if I turned some water into wine? Or, Lazarus, buddy, I'm really sorry you're dead. Thoughts and prayers. So always give the warmest hugs. Bring your funeral food and your leaf rakes and your sweet cards. Always be there for others, as you would have them be there for you. And in the spirit of our beloved Ethan, if you see a mountain, climb it. If you see a trail, discover where it leads. Most of all, live this woefully short and fragile life just as fiercely as you are able.
Hear now these words from Matthew 13, verses 31 and 32. He put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all the seeds, but when it has grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches.
In his book, A Lament for a Son, Nicholas Walterstorff writes, each death is as unique as each life. And in the midst of our lingering grief, we do give thanks for the uniqueness of Ethan's life. He was a child of this church, cherished in this place, growing up in its hallways, surrounded by those who cared for him in much the same way we surround Chuck and Donna and their family on this day. But Chuck and Donna surrounded Ethan with so much support, encouragement, and love. The only people who tried to do that as much as they did that were Ethan's grandparents. I still remember listening to Carl and Nita talk about Ethan's life. They were so proud, and for good reason. Nita used to talk about the Macedonian call that she received when they still lived in Mississippi. That on the other end of the phone in Auburn were Chuck and Donna saying, "Have y'all ever thought about moving to Auburn?" I think their bags were packed that afternoon. That every day Ethan would come home from school and spend time with Carl and Nita. Nita poring over his homework like only a teacher can. And Ethan just trying to get through his homework so he could go in the backyard and work in the garden with his grandfather. Chuck and Donna, more than anything else, celebrated Ethan. They gave him that priceless gift of recognizing his gifts, his interests, his passion, and then enabling him to become the person he was created to be. And what always struck me about Ethan was his unique slant on life. That Ethan never felt limited by other people's boxes. I don't know many middle schoolers who plan their birthday party, inviting all their friends to come over, and then calls up a family friend of their parents to come over and teach his friends how to make sushi. And Ethan loved to go on these slow, long walks in the outdoors because he didn't just see a tree or a bird or a pond. He saw the goodness and grace of God in all of creation. And considering moving out of the country for graduate school or work just seemed like yet another possibility for Ethan. He never felt constrained by other people's boxes, which is why his kindness and his life was so big. And then in the 8th grade, when they took a trip to London, they came across this exhibit about cities in the world. And it was all about innovation and sustainability. And this 8th grader just got lost in thumbing through all of these resources. It became one of those pivotal moments where perhaps a seed was planted, where he would go on to study and work as an urban planner, trying to create communities and places that is good and serves everyone's needs. That apparently there are these seeds planted along the way, like we see in Jesus' parable, where the tiny mustard seed grows up into this large bush or tree, providing shelter and refuge for all the other birds. That perhaps it was the seeds of gardening with his grandfather, digging in the soil, tomatoes and sunflowers, or maybe it was the seeds of such kindness, of putting your arms out as wide as possible and loving all people, which he saw in his grandmother. Or maybe it was that wonderful blessing of his parents, honoring his unique slant in life. But all of those seeds and others grew into a life much bigger, where he tried to create places that was good for everyone. And we don't always see everything that is inside a seed. But perhaps because Ethan was not limited by other people's boxes, he saw more than most. It's why he understood the meaning of what St. Ignatius said. Be kind to everyone, because everyone you meet is fighting a great battle. And we are thankful for all of the grace and goodness in Ethan's life, who tried to show kindness to everyone, because everyone is fighting a great battle. And today we are also thankful for the hope that we find in the seed of God's love. In the midst of grief, there are days where it is hard to see, but the hope of God is oftentimes revealed in the kindness of others. It does not eradicate our grief. It is not a cure for all of our sadness, but it is a hope that speaks to our grief, saying to us time and time again that love is stronger than death. Amen. Following the service, Chuck and Donna and the family invite all of us to join them in the fellowship hall just beneath us. You can take any of the stairs down or the elevator through the door to my right. During this time, Chuck and Donna want to thank you for gathering with them, but simply say there won't be a formal receiving line. That if you would like to come over and give them a hug, please do. But as Chuck says, if you just want to blow them a kiss from across the room, they will take IOUs for all warm embraces that they will continue to need in the days and weeks to come. There's also a book that you can sign and cards on one of the tables where you can jot down one of your favorite memories about Ethan or write down words of comfort for them and the family. And then lastly, there are little packets of seeds, sunflower seeds, Ethan's favorite, that you are invited to take home and to plant in his memory as we give thanks for him. I invite you now to stand for our spoken benediction and remain standing for our closing hymn. That as we go knowing that the gift of love is also the burden of grief. But we place both our grief and our gratitude in the hands of God, the hands that will hold us and will never let us go.
song.